all, but it doesn't matter.
Hi, we're
Hi.
the two secular dudes. I'm Ian,
And
and
Colin. Okay.
that's Colin. Um, and we're here to discuss some current events and current events that are repeated every year for hundreds of years. Um, so
War.
more, thousands of years.
War.
Oh, no, I'm thinking also of Easter.
Yeah,
So we're,
okay.
we're bang in the middle of Easter.
The chocolate festival.
No, the death
Oh,
of God or part of God or the whole of some part somehow, and the Holy Spirit was somehow, I don't know, was there and he breathed it out, and he did that though for all our sins, your sins and my sins. It's the greatest gift that a God can give,
oh
believe
right.
it or not. And I don't quite believe it. Um, and he died. And wait for it, not only did he die, but miracle of all miracles. Well, I guess you got to expect it from somebody who didn't have a father or who somehow had genes that only came from. Anyway, miracle of all miracles, he came back to life. Except,
Excellent. Excellent. We got a record of that anywhere? Is
well,
there any evidence?
yeah, we do. A couple of Christians saw him walking along, and then they said, who was that guy we were just talking to? And one of them said, that looked a lot like Jesus. And the other one said, must have been Jesus. Um,
Okay.
are you a doubting Thomas? So
Uh,
doubting Thomas didn't quite believe the story. And boy, did he have a hard time. His faith was questioned. His belief in miracles, his belief in the unbelievable was threatened.
what happened to him? Did they kill him, or
Um,
did he torture him
I
and let
don't
him get him to?
remember. I did read it. I read the Bible, but it's a long time ago, and I don't remember what. I don't think it ended well. I think the Holy Spirit might have, well, did something to somebody in some time. Anyway,
Died and came back to life and brought everyone chocolate eggs.
um,
Handed out
and,
chocolates for
uh,
everyone.
and hunts and bunnies. Somehow bunnies are in there.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
I've heard that it's all about um, fecundity, about so some guy dies and then it becomes all about fecundity. Oh, that's because he comes back to life. He comes back to
Oh,
life on the third day. So that's why it's a holy day. And yeah, it's a wonderful story. It's so full of really down to earth, believable human. Oh, hang on. He comes back to life. Nobody's ever done that except him. Well, he did bring somebody else back. Oh, but also when the stone was rolled away, according to one report, one of the minority reports, the many minority reports.
alleged minority reports. Yeah. Written
Well,
300 years later or whatever it was,
they're
70 years
minority
later.
reports because they contradict every other minority report. So they're all pretty much minority reports. Um, according to one minority report, the stone was rolled over off the uh, the the grave where he was put.
Mhm.
Clear evidence that he got out of there
Mhm.
by his own power.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
and a lot of other graves opened up and people came back to life. So there were zombies walking around all over the place. It must have been wonderful. Um, People who came out of their graves and yeah, lucky them. Um, at the same time, it's a really incredible story. You wouldn't hardly believe it, would you?
You wouldn't hardly believe it. I was thinking it wouldn't really work now, would it? Because everyone I know is already prepped for the zombie apocalypse. I mean, we're already got our machetes and that ready to race around the street beheading zombies. It'd be terrible.
Well,
Blood everywhere.
I do think there's a point in there that I love those kind of stories
Mhm.
about superhuman people, and zombies and stuff. So, yeah, there must have been people loving stories like that all through history. And given that, medication for diseases, and people believed in spirits and stuff. Stories
First,
like that get half believed and tossed around.
first,
But
first ever zombie apocalypse story.
I do like the way somehow in every one of those zombie movies, you're totally allowed to just to shoot every zombie you see. The whole
Yes,
point is just boom, boom, through the head, boom.
always a
Once
headshot.
they turn the
Always a
zombie,
headshot.
they know it's coming back, and yeah,
Double tap.
I sort of wonder about the ethics of that. How we mistreat zombies. What's wrong with us? But anyway, so the other thing is Jesus has come back to life, but no one's seen him for 2,000 years. So I wonder where he is.
That knows. Yeah, be here soon. He'll be here soon. I keep
He's
hearing
coming
it.
in bodily form um,
Okay,
after the apocalypse.
and
Um,
he's going to be a brown skinned Middle Eastern man. You better not try and turn up in
no,
America.
no, he's going to be white. He's going to
Okay,
look beautiful.
okay,
The tribal
yeah.
crap, yeah, but he probably, yeah, well, he definitely was Jewish if he existed. And an Arab,
Mm,
um, like all the Jews are Semites.
yeah. So Arabs essentially.
It's Arabs. Yeah, yeah. I didn't say
Semites,
that.
Semites. That's a language group. Am I right in thinking that it's essentially a
Um,
language group?
Essentially, it is. Yeah, people who naturally use I don't know if it's Farsi, Aramaic, or whatever it is, but yeah, it's a group of languages. And I don't know, but I think it's shared a lot with the people who were there originally before a lot of people came apparently back who don't look anything like the Semites who were there before.
The,
Um,
the ones from Poland and Romania and Wisconsin and that, you mean?
well, yeah, no, but that's okay. That's good.
Okay, okay.
They learn a form of Hebrew apparently, which is easy to learn. But yeah, no, these languages were also spoken by Palestinians.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh,
So they were also
and
Semites as well
well,
back in the day.
um, I don't know if you're allowed to say that, are you? Um, could
Oh,
could it be illegal according to Australian law?
probably,
Um, could you?
probably.
Well, you said it, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Jail term. Oh.
Yeah, so going on to that, Jan Fran had a really powerful YouTube. If you get a chance to see it, what would I say? What would we search for? Search for Jan Fran River to the Sea YouTube.
We should link it in the description and point
We'll
down
link it
there.
in the yeah, link it down there. I don't know if that's on top of your head or under your head, but according to my screen,
I can't see my head, and that
bloody
makes me
Zoom
happy.
is terrible. Don't use Zoom, guys. Yeah.
That probably will send you to jail. U.S.
Anyway,
corporation. How dare you?
she was really powerful and really amazing, really brave, because the law as it is in Queensland is an attack on free speech in my view. Um, the
Yeah.
guy wore a t-shirt with a phrase that you're not allowed to say in Queensland. Possibly that's coming here. Who knows?
Yeah, now this is the river to the sea. When we say from the river
He
to
said
the
it.
sea, yeah, no, that's me. When we say from the river to the sea, so is that where's the river and where's the sea? So the sea
Oh,
is
it's
is
Euphrates to the Nile. They're both rivers, so I don't know. But is one the Dead Sea or something? But yeah, up in the middle of Persia down to I think it's halfway through Egypt or border with Egypt.
oh, okay. So the river to the sea. What's the Israeli claim for Greater Israel? Like how's great is Greater Israel sort of a band that goes sort of across from the Levant and into Egypt and across from Levant over through Iraq and into well Iraq. That's where the Euphrates is, isn't it? Is that the border between Iraq and
Well,
Iran?
I mean, according to God, not the same God as the one I talked about
Yeah,
before,
which one?
not
Which
the
one?
three-parted one, but the real one or the original, I don't
Okay.
know, the OG
Version 1.0.
version 1.0, who, was in favor of a particular people, um, and then changed his mind. He promised it to um, Abraham. Abram wasn't even Abraham, apparently.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if they drew up any
Maps.
maps, but certainly Netanyahu, who's very close to God and a really good guy, has a map, and he showed it at the UN.
War criminal, yeah. Go
Yeah, yeah.
on. Pardon
He
me.
said it.
You're going to be saying that a lot. That's him.
I'm sitting pretty. Yeah. Um,
I don't know. I suppose I get confused, and it's sort of difficult because I was talking to a bloke yesterday, and I was saying, oh, fuck Israel, fuck the US. The Middle East is just such a mess, right? Mess. And he said, oh yeah, I was saying Palestinians, it's unfair what's happened. Unfair. That's such an understatement. And in Lebanon, what's happening is criminal. It's all criminal.
Lebanon,
And
yeah,
huh?
but a million people being displaced and told
Yeah,
not to come back
yeah, yep.
by the
Um,
chosen people who are now going to live there. Yeah.
and he said to me, "Oh yeah, but it's got this long history, and the borders are all sort of amorphous. So who's to say who's right and who's wrong?" And it's like, yeah, no, I can't buy that. It, 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 the claims, like all the borders, mostly were drawn up by the Brits. 120 years ago or somewhere in there. Is that like when was Palestine created? That was created
19,
by the Brits.
1948. Yeah.
No, but prior to that, before, like
Oh,
the
the
Arabs didn't have
boundaries.
borders
I
on a
don't know.
map like ours, did they? So it was like more tribal sort of boundaries rather than formalizations on a map.
Yeah, but there've been people. I mean, the same thing has happened in Europe. You know,
Mm.
um, but you don't see people in England giving away properties to the Romans who used to live there
No,
when they
no, like
occupied it.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, no, absolutely. It's just
It just creates war and pestilence and that's a biblical term, but war and hatred and enmity and to say that someone who's been living on a piece of land for hundreds of years doesn't own that piece of land
mm,
um, because somebody else did thousands of years before them.
if they even had a concept of land ownership back then.
Even if it was true,
Yeah, yeah. No, so it
because
was
so much is based on fabrication.
it's very hard to get, and this is where Stavrakopoulou, Francesca Stavrakopoulou. Scholars like that are helpful, I think, to understand these things. But yeah, anyway, how did we get onto that? From the river to the sea. That's what I was trying to work out
Yeah, yeah.
where the
I think
land
it's an
claims are.
attack on free speech, and really watch Jan Fran. She's just amazing, really heartfelt as well.
Yeah, okay, I'll
Um,
have a look at that one.
but we can compare that with some of the people who have changed their stripes, or at least changed their stripes slightly to because they can sense in the air that change is coming. So in America, the America First movement, Anna Kasparian is from TYT. I used to
Yeah.
watch TYT and I kind of loved it. Um, But
Yeah, it was better. I stopped watching it too.
yeah, I think everybody, there were a lot of good, lot of, it was a hub really of a lot of good people at the time.
Mm.
Um, anyway, she has stuck with it, and gotten stuck in it. But oh wow, she speaks really powerfully about America first. So, for example, I don't even know if I can get away with saying it. For once, it's going to be me who says it, and not Cole. Um,
Not him. Usually him. Mostly him.
um, yeah. So, who is going to be invading Iran if there's a land force going into Iran? What nationality is it going to be?
Well, they would be. You'd imagine they would be American
They
boots.
are. Yeah.
I'm sort of trepidatious that as the UK, who've always been sort of a vassal state of America, have brought together all these global leaders about
And
how they're going to
Australia
fix.
was the first to leap into this war, disgustingly so.
Yeah.
The
Well,
first to
we
show
said it was
allegiance
we said it was
to
defensive.
Donald
Yeah.
Bloody Trump. Yeah.
No, no,
No, but
high
it's the
politicians thought it was the
US, and
brace.
it's not the Israelis. The IDF is apparently not going to be shedding any blood at all in going into Iran. Now, maybe it will be different by the time it happens, but currently that's the situation, or at least according to Anna Kasparian, not me. So blame her, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah,
Anna,
go on.
so the America First thing, wow, is that biting in the US? It's really changing attitudes towards MAGA and towards Trump. His numbers are in the negative, less
Yeah,
than 50% on almost every issue.
yeah, down to 33 on some, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
his days are numbered. But again, by the time you get the CIA and everyone else starting to influence elections and trying to sort of outsource it to Romania or wherever they outsource
well,
their people
also
so
like
they can blame it on someone.
the people who rise to the top, who put their finger in the air and are looking after and are seeing that they've got a career of decades to come.
Mm,
I'm thinking mainly of AOC.
yeah,
Um,
we'll cover
she
that
wants to put
next
her
segment.
into a situation, and I believe she's just a sellout. She's always been a sellout. But so on the what you loosely let's call them liberals because they're not left, right? But basically on the left is the Democrats who have all voted for the war. Now she's starting to make noises like she's turning because the population is, right? But she wants to just get in and promise things and do things and promise stuff. And then when she gets in, she's not going to do any of it. That's how she's operated in the past.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Her voting history. So as far as her voting history goes, um, she does vote along party lines on a lot of issues. Um, she recently, in a speech in early April, so a few days ago, she's pledged to
Which I haven't
oppose.
seen. I admit I haven't seen.
She's a pledge to oppose all future military aid to Israel, including funding defensive systems like the Iron Dome.
Well, that's the
Um,
solution.
hey,
That is the
well,
solution. Well,
yeah, exactly, and we should essentially Israel should be what do you call it? Just shut them off. Like just no, no,
they should they should
we shouldn't
they
be
should
dealing with them at all.
they should make treaties with their neighbours like every other country has to.
Exactly, exactly. Just going back to America. On that note, I was just talking to Cheryl this morning, but on that note, like when you look at the EU, no matter how dysfunctional it is and how untrustworthy they've become because of their dithering on whether or like this is without doubt a criminal action by a rogue state, and
Colin
and
said
you,
it.
yeah, and the Iranian and the Europeans broadly have did it, apart from the UK, who was apologetic. The German chancellor is like vaguely support. Like there hasn't Spain said no, you're not using airspace and you can fuck off.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Ireland also has been pretty strong.
Ireland's
Well,
been pretty
some people
strong.
in Ireland, yeah.
Yeah, so and now Italy have said no, you're not flying. Apparently, British is still shipping armaments to the US
Did I
military that
hear
have been told.
someone who was one of those generals? We were talking before about these generals who don't have any career left, so they can say what they think for a change.
Mm.
Um, Ex-generals in the US.
Yeah, yeah.
One of them was saying on a YouTube that Italy is promising to use nuclear weapons if they invade. Oh, I think if they go into Turkey. Um, oh, okay. I shouldn't say what I don't know nothing about. Okay, but Italy was being incredibly strong, really strong.
Yes. So there's been some, but my point was the point I was trying to make was so to get to the point where there is even the semblance of a common a, a commonality in the European Union. This was about years of negotiation and bilateral. Like it was just a lot of work to get to the point where they could form the European Parliament, no matter how dysfunctional it is or anything else. Whereas America First isn't this multilateral arrangement because, they still talk about wanting, the Monroe Doctrine and the Western Hemisphere's ours, but essentially that chunk of land running down from Canada and Greenland all the way down to, well, I imagine, until there's no more down through South America until they run out of water resources that are worth extracting. But rather than approaching it as, all right, well, let's go through this whole ugly process and really difficult process of trying to build up a common enough commonality to form a parliament that covers the Americas broadly and work within that framework. The US are just like, oh, fuck it, we'll go and steal a president, or we'll go and overthrow a government, or whatever. So they've never. So America first means and everyone else second.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
winners and losers. America first, and everyone else can get fucked. And it's not even about. And the most obnoxious thing about it to me is when I look at things, from an outside, and like I just see what I see on the internet or whatever you hear in the news and that, but their healthcare system sounds like shit. Their poverty. Did you know that the Americans, on average, like Americans are only half as wealthy as like Germany and France and Britain because most of the money is accumulated at the top. You see poverty like every time you see any like photograph in America, you will see just homeless people, and you hear about people dying without
Homelessness,
health, dying without
homeless
health
people
care.
under every bridge apparently,
Yeah,
potholes in the roads. Yeah.
dying without health care, going bankrupt because they haven't got health care, going to schools where they've got to recite the Pledge of Allegiance every day and be indoctrinated into this America first and Jesus told us to go and slaughter people in the Middle East shit. It's not looking in from the outside, looking in from the outside, it's not the sort of society that I would want to be part of. It's just unappealing. Like, I've never been there. I've been to Europe. Europe, it's okay, but America doesn't. They want to expand this empire that doesn't look like such a good empire to live under. What they do have is a remarkable amount of control over their populations, like cognitive manipulation. It's not to say there's no one out there. We always talk about Chris Hedges. There's plenty of Americans that speak out about it, but if this is an illegal war and the military aren't supposed to follow illegal orders, how did this war start?
Okay, there's a couple of things I would say.
Yeah,
Um, I really like Americans on average. The people you meet are fantastic people.
yeah. I don't have a problem with
Um,
Americans any more than I have a
that's
problem
the
with
first thing to
Jews.
say, right?
Yeah,
The second thing to say is
some
that
Americans, I should say.
the America First thing about getting out of the war and the forever wars where you lie to a population that you're bringing them freedom and democracy, and you're really just bringing them death and destruction and hatred for the West, hatred for us, especially in Australia. And there's little we can do about it. We don't have the defences that the Americans have. What are
But
we
do we
going to do?
need them?
Run to the bully and say, "Oh, didn't we? Weren't we the first to run to you?" With the, you know,
But isn't this why we set up the
we're
UN?
putting ourselves in a really dangerous situation. But the point is that both left and right in America are joining in this. So on the right, there's probably the person who has the biggest YouTube numbers on the planet, Tucker Carlson.
Can't
Now,
stand him.
yeah, I mean, personally, I don't like him. It makes me, I don't believe he said he reads the Bible every day. Okay. Either way, I can't quite get what's going on there.
It's not that
Um,
interesting. I've tried. I've tried.
but boy, is he an excellent interloper, interviewer. So and he really makes his points really forcefully. The some of the points he makes are extremely weird, um, religious things. But the point is, there's sort of AOC and there's him, and they both represent the same kind of thing, the same kind of resistance to the Epstein class that is producing the current disease in America and could be popular, polls of to join popular opinion. And they're both big on social media,
I think
which
as a politician, you need to be though. That's not
you well,
you need to have reach.
Tucker Carlson was a what's uh, what is Murdoch's show?
Sky News.
Sky News. He was a big, and he was the only one who people would watch because they kind of let him say what he thought and what he thought was interesting and grabbed a lot of viewers. So when he left, it was a big thing for him. But I think Murdoch just couldn't take the fact that he was talking the truth a bit too much. And when I say talking the truth, I don't think he talks the truth. So there's the right and left there. And the other thing about America is that they have a history of having made a decision to um, to coalesce around really a pretty good constitution, which they amended with the First Amendment, which is amazing, excuse the French. We don't have it really,
No, a Bill of Rights. It's been
a Bill
talked
of
about over here.
Rights.
Yeah, we need one.
And when they go to a war, they have to lie that it's for democracy, and democracy is a good thing. Uh, Individual freedom.
Is it?
Well, okay. There's debates there, and even Socrates didn't think it was the best system. But what are you going to have? Enlightened philosopher kings? I don't know.
Look,
Um,
I don't know, but is it
but the point I'm making is that
democracy?
they have
Yeah,
this real down inside them. They have a really good core sense of social values.
kidding me.
I do. I think so.
So they created their constitution, but black men and women and Native Americans couldn't vote, no voting
Yeah,
rights.
but they overcame it. They had slavery and they overcame it.
Except now, still most of the world works for American corporations as
And
slaves, in
and
effect.
also like when they left the plantations, they went to uh,
Church.
Chicago, like Chicago or other places, and they formed suburbs which are now been so neglected that they're sources of they're just eyesores, and the coppers are there, and the crime and
Because they had no education. They had no
yeah,
access to
no
decent
education, given
education.
no leg ups. It was racism, of course, that was keeping them down. All of that is true, and it's really bad there compared to here. but we don't have freedom of speech. We don't have
Well,
anybody. We don't have a
there's an implied freedom of speech. I guess it's not strict, but then again, even in America, it's not an
well.
absolute
I
right.
mean, how weak is that? You know.
Well, I don't know, because I mean, I guess in many ways, this YouTube video or our YouTube videos generally attest to that. I mean, when they come and kick down the if I don't censor my language and they kick down the door and say, "Colin, you're coming with us," and if I do disappear, just, if you don't hear
Well,
me
you're
for a
going
few,
to after today.
exactly. Um, you know, but it's an implied freedom of speech. But in America, even in America, it's not absolute. So you can't go onto a university campus, even if it's private property, and say, fucking from the river to the sea. You know, you still can't go into a cinema and go bomb or fire or whatever and cause a panic
Oh
that
yeah,
has people
yeah,
trampled. So it's not an absolute right in either sense. Look, I would much rather have it explicitly stated. I would much rather we had a Bill of Rights, but then I'd much rather that we were a constitutional republic and had to rethink our whole constitution.
yeah, yeah.
I would much rather we recognise the
Like the
Indigenous
Americans.
people in our constitution because this is stolen land. We stole it.
I mean,
You know?
the problem is that they've freed up their economy by having their own constitution and their own new power structure, and it worked for hundreds of years. But it's kind of now it's stuck at the top. Wall Street is just stuck in a corrupt cycle. Um, they're not really producing anything of value. All of that's gone to China. You know, real stuff they produce in China.
Yeah, and what
They
is
don't
it?
produce. They don't just
The top
produce.
12%. Oh, go on.
They don't just produce toxic financial instruments. You know.
They also produce toxic waste. I mean,
Yeah.
they're about to take 50% of the funding off the EPA. They've taken away all the regulations around emissions from coal-fired
And
power
currently,
stations.
China is enacting changes which will see a lot less waste produced by them per population.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm in favor of. I know. I just kind of feel that when I talk to people in Australia, when they when they don't like America, it's a little bit of chauvinism. There's a lot that's good under there with all those people,
I,
and we're not important. They are. The reason that they're so blinkered is because they're so important. They have to be blinkered. You know, they have to be sold. Oh, you're the best. You always were, and our military is the best. And you know, that'll work on us if we were powerful. That would work on
Look,
us just as much.
and essentially it's what's happening now because America has always been about the upper echelon of their society. They always
Mm.
favoured the slave owners till they couldn't. Then they said, that's all right, hook up with the church people, just get all the slaves into the tents, make them go to church, pay them enough money to spend in the shop you built, and keep them on the
And
farm doing the same stuff.
then the factory owners who were, you know,
And then the
yeah,
factory
I
owners,
maintain that the bourgeoisie grabbed power by actually producing stuff. Uh,
and they've made it a race to the
they
bottom.
didn't
I mean,
steal their gold; they actually made it out of stuff. Yeah.
when neoliberalism came here, I mean, okay, so we sold off the Commonwealth Bank and like, you know, everyone bought their 100 shares and US pension funds bought, or US pension funds, private investors in US like BlackRock or whatever, you know, like investment firms just bought up our energy supplies, our water supplies, our banking systems,
Oh shit, yeah.
you know, and we sold,
Oh,
and they said, "Oh, look, we'll give you $1 billion," and everyone said, "Yay!" And then
and I think we're
since
gonna
then,
we'll put also a link to Punter Politics.
yeah, he's really the gas. But so this is American corporations, you know, that are just doing what capitalism has always done, and that is strip mine the world for the benefit of a very small class of people. And at the same time, they've involved us all in a race to the bottom. We used to have quite
But
a
hang
progressive
on,
tax system.
I've studied. I know capitalism. I've heard what I've heard. It produces the best of all possible worlds
In
in
every
every
possible
possible
circumstance.
case. Yeah, yeah, in every
Yeah,
possible.
exactly, and that's
Um, yeah.
and so America as a people, I don't this in the same way that I'm not talking when I'm talking about Israel and Zionism and this bitter approach to just slaughtering anyone who's going to stand in your way. I don't think it's that different from America. They go into South America. They've been quite happy to go and kill people, through proxies in South America, in Africa, in like just wherever. They quite happy to go and slaughter people around Vietnam. Why? Because J. Edgar Hoover thought the communists were so bad, so
Well,
let's go and
they
kill
took a
three
lot of,
three million Vietnamese.
according to Chomsky, they took a lot of ex-Nazis into Central America to train them how to terrorize the local population. Just disgusting stuff.
Yeah, so and that's not on the American people per se. That's not on the American people, but it's certainly on people like Kissinger and the Christian nationalists. I mean, Hoover was a Christian nationalist, and right from the very get-go, the FBI was about making it a Christian nation, and that's been used to hammer people on the head and still is today. It's not about America as a population; it's about America as an ideology, and it's just toxic, and we get dragged down with it. We're about to spend what $360 billion on submarines. That, like, if we're really serious about worrying about the world, why on earth are we buying submarines that won't even float in our waters? That we can't even protect our own coastline with them. And it's like at the moment, like, oh, sorry, to Taiwan and to South Korea. All those armaments we sold you, we want them back now because we need them to blow up the Middle East, and that's it. And like,
Yeah,
for
they
our
did
sub,
do that. Yeah, they took them to,
yeah.
yeah.
And so we pay 360 billion for some submarines, and it's like, sorry, we're taking them to war in the Middle East. Sorry about, and they've created this false sense of fear about China and whatever. So everyone's sort of frothing at the mouth about the threats of China. I don't think China's ever made any threat to us, have they?
I'm amazed that it even floats at all. But from day one, they introduced it slowly. I remember the first day they talked about the threat of China on the ABC. And it was just the threat that, they're producing toys at a cheaper cost than what we can make them. I mean, that kind of stuff.
As every toy maker in Australia went out and bought a factory site in Beijing or partnered up with a
Exactly.
Chinese company
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
make our toys for us.
And every uh, um, uh, capitalist from Silicon Valley were producing iPhones and routers and God knows what. The Chinese are just producing beautiful stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck to
Um,
them. Good luck to them.
I
And
I had a Apple computer, top of the range, beautiful one. Um, for various reasons, I now have a Lenovo one made in China. Really, really, really nice.
me too.
Oh, we should also talk about one thing before we go, which I didn't talk to you about before. A lot of people are going to be buying electric cars.
I think this is going to be the big outcome of this is like, yeah, we'll get the batteries in now. We'll get the
I'm
electric
smiling
cars.
because, all these guys who say, oh, they blow up on you. Oh, they're so unsafe. Oh, the batteries never last, Yeah, yeah. I wonder how much I'm going to hear, what kind of different stories are coming around now. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
but yeah, of course, we're in the middle of pretty much, well, Albo, our Prime Minister, comes on TV 5 minutes at the start of the news telling us, don't worry about stuff because everything's okay.
everything's
Don't
fine.
worry.
Everything's fine.
Everything's good.
And we told you we're introducing a draft. We're shipping you off to Iran.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Anyway, just to go back to where we were, I don't think AOC's voting record is better. I'm looking at it now. It's better than you think, and I think if we're going to work within,
well, I hope so. I hope so.
yeah, if we've got to work within the
What I'm
parameters
saying is
of,
don't trust them though.
I
Keep
wouldn't
them,
trust.
put their feet to the fire.
Yeah, absolutely. I would trust. I don't. I think that that's a space where trust isn't really something that can happen anymore. It's got to be by their actions. I mean, I always vote Green. I always preference to Labor, but I always do it through the Greens. And I hope one day that Labor actually desperately needs it. Like Gillard did a pretty good job in having to go and work, across the aisle with the Greens and with the Independents to get through some pretty major legislation. So I just hope Labor goes back to that position where they're willing to take the Greens more seriously rather than seeing them as the communist threat in Australia. You know,
Yeah, it's interesting. The disaffection with the major parties is leading to some bloody dangerous stuff with Pauline Hanson, and yeah,
yeah,
I don't know what to say about that. I'll have to think about that. She,
yeah.
well, I'm definitely not in favour of Pauline Hanson.
No, and
Um,
and like
so blame
Gina,
the other.
Gina Reinhart gives $1 million to the Labor and two
Yeah,
million bucks to the Liberal Party and $1 million to Pauline Hanson, $3 million
yeah,
to Pauline Hanson.
yeah.
Anything that's going to support the status quo, that's never going to challenge the mining
And
lobby
so
or the
you
energy lobby.
blame the immigrant for all the problems of Australia.
Yeah,
What a sorry bloody, policy they have. Um,
but it's a playbook, isn't it?
sorry.
It's a playbook, divide and conquer.
Yeah, yeah, and it plays on. We talked about and I keep talking about because it's so important in the world to understand it. What's happening with the Zionists. It's um, tribal. It's a tribal thing, right back in the back of our brain, the hatred of the other or the fear of the other. And like I say, I said this once to a Lebanese mate of mine, looks very Lebanese,
Mm.
really, really close. Really, luckily he's a really smart guy because I said it the wrong way, as I often do. I said,
I got that disease, foot and mouth.
"Look,
Yeah.
I should tone myself down." And I said to him stupidly, I look at you, and there's probably part of my brain which, because of just how you look, reduces your status in my brain.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
he understood perfectly what I was saying, luckily, because it's so stupid.
But I think it's true, and that sort
Um,
of stuff comes up.
and
So, like, it's just,
that probably saved some of our ancestors when people were coming around over the next valley and we don't know what's going on around us.
uh,
But it's no longer appropriate when we have, a police force that's organised nationally, a defence that's organised nationally. We have law courts so that you can get some justice in this system, especially when it comes to murder.
and you'd
So
think in the you think
it's
in the long
totally
run
inappropriate,
that
that
the multicultural societies. I was going to say that. I always think of that. Uh, South Park. I think it was a mini movie. Just how Americans are always so they're scared of the Indians and they're scared of the slaves and they're just scared of everything. But I think maybe evolutionary.
evolutionarily,
That's it. Um,
I don't know,
living in multicultural societies, maybe that part of our
evolutionarily, 7 syllables. That's pretty good.
hmm, yeah. Maybe over time, part of that will dissipate from it. We still need a fear response. I mean, you still need to have that response. So I don't know. So maybe you do it through the courts, but you don't do it through the courts by making it impossible to criticise. Like before this Zionist thing came to a head over here, as the Israel lobby started to say, well, like if you criticise Israel, you're an anti-Semite, and we're asking your government to give you 10 years in jail if you're an anti-Semite. Before it was that we had this. Oh, we're so persecuted as Christians. You don't want us to be able to steal kids out of their bed because they're gay and take them away to some camp in the country and hood them and beat them up and starve them for weeks and weeks and then say you're not. As soon as you say you're not gay for 3 months on end, you're allowed to go home under surveillance. Oh yeah, a bit of conversion therapy. That's good.
I mean, not all Christians are like that, but yes, some definitely were.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. I mean, there's people who just go to church to hang out with people and bake a cake and have a fete and stuff. And like, with the, I don't have a problem with individual beliefs, but it's that same thing, isn't it? It's like your beliefs sort of stop at the end of your arm or whatever. Your rights stop at the end of space. You can't go and impose an unverifiable claim on the rest of society. That so you say that some dude said that you've got to kill all gays, or if you wear, clothing made out of wool and cotton, you've got to be stoned to death, or if your kids talk back to you, beat them to death or whatever. Like, if you want to believe, that's fine, but you can't do that to your kids or to the gay people who live next door or whatever. You just can't do that shit, or society won't function. And but fucking we roll over every time, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
We try and worm our way through special legislation, the anti-Semitism and fucking hate speech, free speech. I'm a big advocate of free speech within bounds, I guess. But
I
it,
I wonder if some of that hate speech, the pressure on hate speech is so repressive, it's actually going to increase hatred.
I think it might. I think it
And I
might.
think,
I think it has the potential to, because it allows. Because it's a bit like, in some ways, how the
and
Christian right got ahead.
that would benefit some people, some lobby groups.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Can we talk about? I think can we wrap it up a little?
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
I
Um,
think this week on Thursday, Dr. John Perkins from the Secular Party is going to speak at the Unitarian Church in Grey Street, Melbourne. And the topic is, should Israel exist, if I may ask?
what
This is
is
quite a
100?
different topic.
Yeah, 110 Grey Street. I was just going to say
110 Grey Street, and
East
we'll put it
Melbourne.
in the
Yep,
thing below.
yep.
Yeah. It just so happens there's another genius speaking later in May. That's me. Um,
Excellent.
I'll be talking about artificial intelligence, more sort of from the historical perspective, I think. But yeah,
Yeah. And so, I mean, I probably won't get down to East Melbourne, but I do want to see it.
you
And
can. There is a
Zoom link,
Zoom.
is that an open link? Is that like an open? How do people go about getting that? Do we know? Like,
Uh,
you, with all of our followers, there could be millions signing up to see it. Are they ready to take that on?
the 50 guys that came in last week, the five guys or whatever. I haven't seen the numbers. I'm not doing it for the numbers, but yeah,
No,
probably the
just
moment I look
just
at
as
them, I'll
well.
start to do it. But yeah, but yeah, there's a Zoom link. We'll put that in as well for uh, John Perkins's. I'm I'm of half a mind to go just on the link because of petrol.
Yeah, yeah.
Concerned
Well,
about the car.
it becomes a matter, an issue, doesn't it?
Mm.
Uh, 21 views, 30 views, 13 views,
Oh, we're not doing
uh,
too bad.
5 views.
Everybody I sent the link
I think people. I think people are secretly sharing it. They're downloading it and distributing it.
to. um,
Yeah.
well, whatever. Um, A, we're having fun, and B, we're so insignificant that if they tried to send us to jail, it would make more of a stink than if they just leave us alone. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they will. It's just we'd definitely be on the radar of the Israeli lobby and the CIA and ASIO by now. So so be it.
Well, I'd like to say to ASIO, don't tie everything with the CIA. You know how they lie.
Oh no.
Look after our security. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't believe their bullshit. It's not. It's not. It's not the economic. Like, communism is bad, capitalism is good. It's like, I don't know, maybe a mixed economy where there's a bit of government involvement here and, a bit left to the market over there, and we'll nationalize our resources, and like,
Yeah,
mix it up a
I'd like
bit.
to have a discussion on what wealth is, because to me, wealth is not paper. It's the things you can live in and drive and eat, and it's the productivity. And you know, um, I think also we're starting to get to an age where the economy should be working for us, rather than us working for the economy. Um, Surely we're at a point now where um, we don't have to just keep pushing and pushing for growth, which is cancerous.
Yeah,
We want growth, which will, I'm all for going to the moon and going to the stars,
yeah, yeah.
but that's
So you
not
got,
necessarily growth here will lead to that. You know,
yeah. There's a lot of good. Samuel Alexander's a academic here in Melbourne. I think he was in Melbourne. He's done a lot of work on degrowth, and there are a lot of academics doing work on degrowth
I think
because.
John Perkins too is doing a bit on.
Oh, is he? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So the
Uh,
living. So I did. I did. Gemini and I did some maths this morning, just on just
I
on
researched.
well well, so ostensibly if you add up all the land in the world, um or well, so not all of the land, but um if you divided all the land in the world, so all of the habitable land on the planet between the entire population of the world at the moment, we'd all get 1.25, about 1.25 hectares each. And if you divided up all of the assets in the world amongst all of the people in the world, we'd each end up with about $70,000 US dollars each.
Geez, that's not much, is it?
No, but if you had one and a quarter hectares, so that's what, 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. It's no
Oh,
hectares. Sorry, hectares. 10,000 by 10. No, how big is a hectare? Yeah, 10,000 by 10,000 meters, isn't it? So you can grow a few veggies on that.
yeah, yeah. Well,
A
but
couple
the
of
other
chooks.
thing is the according to MIT, who did a study on it,
Mm,
maybe I should link it if I can find it. Um, the last time we were returning as much stuff to the environment as we were taking from it was 1981.
mm. Yeah, we've been on overshoot for a lot. I know the yeah, overshoot. I think the is it World Wildlife Fund do that, like it's Earth is it Earth Day, the day that we end up going into a deficit each year, and it's usually about July or August where we've can, because I think we're on about
Is
1.8 times at the moment. Yeah, so there is a massive overshoot, and that's a population thing, but it's also how we live. I mean, you look at, because did I tell you Singapore? I reckon Singapore have got the whole housing thing worked out over there, because their government owns most of or their government builds most of the housing. So they go and say, yeah, we're going to build 20-story apartments. I don't know that I'd necessarily go with their architectural choices, but so if you want to buy a house, if you don't qualify for public housing because you got no, you got a disability and you're not able to productively perform in society, if you don't qualify that and you want to buy a house, you put a 5% deposit down with the government, and then they start building the property when they've got enough people or whatever. And then when the house is available for you to move into, or the apartment's available for you to move into, you pay another 15% deposit, and then you pay off the mortgage over the life of the mortgage from there on in. And if you want to have a second home or become a property investor, um, straight up front, there's a 30% stamp duty that you got to pay to disincentivise people becoming landlords. Because as
the
soon
other
as
way
people
around
start,
in Australia. Yeah, they give
yeah,
you a big handout.
your goal
I've
is to
been
live.
I for my work would travel to Singapore every 6 months for quite a period of time, 8 years or so. And Um, I was amazed how bright and airy their apartments are, and it's not even medium density; it's high density.
Yeah,
But they
yeah.
live in these places, and their families living in them, and they love them. And you see these kids coming out all beautifully dressed in the morning, happy, running around.
Yeah,
Um,
big parklands at the bottom. I mean, what we would call,
Big parklands, yeah, nice, beautiful. Everything's done. So, but there is a thing about, oh, I don't know if I can get into it, but um, they did also have cheap rent for a long time. I think they're starting uh, to wind back on that, especially after Lee Kuan Yew died. Not that I'm a fan of Lee Kuan Yew, but you know, so I'm not really sure. So I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't know. But yeah, when you're in Singapore, you want to have polite conversation. And mostly, I was just amazed by uh, how well they'd managed housing. And everybody has aircon. Um, Meals going out. Everyone can almost eat every night just going out, and beautiful, delicious meals. Um, yeah, it's amazing if you gear your economy for the population rather than for the super rich. Even just a little bit of thought in that direction creates a huge difference for for the bulk of the population. It's just not
yeah,
being done here. Just not being
no,
done here.
no,
The
it's
opposite. And
geared
in
towards
America,
investors.
yeah, they just lie their way around pretending that it's done and it's not.
Yeah, do you ever watch House of L on YouTube? She's a financial analyst mostly. Um, there's been a new economic measure of the way, rather than using GDP, wish I could spell economic measure. Rather than using GDP, what it does, it equalises a basket of goods set in US dollars, but essentially a basket of goods um, for your weekly shop, and prices that in an international dollar. And then what they measure is how many hours you have to work in any particular country to get enough to earn a dollar. And I think in the UK used to be higher and Germany used to be higher or whatever, but they looked at UK, Germany, France, I think, and US. And in America, to earn your $1, you've got to work twice as long as someone in
Mm,
either UK, France, or Germany. And they're saying that's actually a better measure of poverty, because if you just take poverty and say, look, it's anyone who's earning less than $2 or $2.99 a day it is now. So when you look at poverty globally, you've only got two groups of people. You've got people that are in poverty and everyone else. And
mm,
and so they talk about poverty in that context. Whereas if you use this measure and you look at it on a country by country basis, then it's the amount of time you need to work to be able to get a dollar to buy your goods. That is actually the thing. Yeah, Americans have to work twice as hard as Europeans to earn the same. So in effect, what that says is more Americans are living in poverty because they're having to work twice as hard as Europeans. So, in effect, Europeans are twice as rich as Americans, and Americans are twice as whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was interesting. Just I'll try and remember it for next time. You know, came out of MIT, I think.
yeah, I stepped into a taxi in Las Vegas, and the
Mm,
guy taught high school and had two other jobs, one of them being a taxi driver. I mean, you're teaching in high school, you're doing something of extreme importance to the state. You should be revered and you should have a decent standard of living. Three jobs. His time's just spent in anxiety about how he's going to pay for the next operation.
yeah, and living with this fear of Well, we were talking about earlier, just this fear of like, oh no, you,
Predatory
you hear these
capitalism.
Americans. It's like, oh look, I had a broken leg, but I didn't want to call an ambulance because
Mm.
I didn't want to go broke.
Yeah,
So I hobbled 3 miles to the hospital.
I'm starting to feel that way now too. I'm getting older, and yeah.
Oh, I know.
Okay, mate.
All right,
I think we should leave it there.
cool.
Um, let's hope that we're both here next time around. Um,
If I don't hear from you, I don't know, head to the ASIO building in Canberra and just knock on the door. See who answers.
don't say that because then they'll put me in a basement where no one can find me. But anyway, yeah.
All right, man.
Okay,
I'll
mate.
talk to you. Yeah, soon.
Okay, talk to you
Bye.
anon. Okay, bye.
Bye, peeps.